You know this face. I mean, of course you do. It's one of the most famous images in the entire world. The golden death mask of King Tutankhamun. And when you look at it, it just screams power, doesn't it? Wealth, majesty, a god king ruling over this incredible empire. But that's just the mask. Today, we're going to go behind it to find the story of the boy who actually wore it. And you'll see that the shiny, gilded surface is hiding a much more tragic reality.
But first, let's just start with the number 2. As in 2 years old. That's how old one pharaoh was when he was handed the throne of all of Egypt. Now that wasn't Tutankhamun, but it just goes to show you how young a ruler could be. Tut himself was barely older, just 9. Can you even imagine that? A kid, just a boy, being told he's now a living god on earth?
So that whole idea of a child god, well, that brings us to the first part of his story. We have to start with the image that was sold to the world, this myth of his absolute, unquestionable power as the ruler of all Egypt.
And the scale of it all, it's just mind-boggling. I mean, think about it. At an age when most kids can barely speak in full sentences, this boy was being crowned with these enormous titles like Lord of the Two Lands and Son of Ra. In name anyway, he was the most powerful person on the entire planet.
But here's the thing, the powerful, simple, and honestly, kind of heartbreaking truth. For all that gold, all those fancy titles, all the ceremony, Tutankhamun did not truly rule. Not really. That immense power, it was all an illusion.
So if the boy king wasn't actually in charge, then who was? That question? Well, it leads us to the real story of his reign, where we get to unmask the true power in his court, the hands that were really behind the throne.
See, here's the bottom line. The real power was held by these ambitious, super experienced men. You had regents, powerful priests, generals, and they saw a perfect opportunity. They realized they could rule the entire empire, make any decision they wanted, all through the name of a child who was way too young to understand what was going on, let alone object. He was, for all intents and purposes, a divine puppet.
And boy, they did not waste any time. Acting in the boy's name, they immediately went to work reversing the radical religious changes of his father, Akhenaten. You know, the guy who tried to make Egypt worship only one god. They brought back the whole pantheon of old gods, they moved the capital city, they basically reshaped the entire kingdom from top to bottom.
Okay, so while all this high-stakes political drama is unfolding, what about the boy, the kid at the very center of it all? This brings us to the most personal, and really the most tragic part of his story, the deep human frailty of a person who was supposed to be a god.
You see, behind that perfect golden mask, there wasn't some strong, divine being. Nope. Studies of his mummy have shown us a really harsh reality. He was frail, he suffered from genetic conditions, probably because of inbreeding in the royal family. He had a club foot and most likely had to walk with a cane. He grew up weak and sick.
And he never even got the chance to grow old. He died at just 18 or 19, a life that was barely even lived, spent as a political symbol and plagued by illness from the very beginning. A god king who was, in the end, just a fragile young man.
So, hold on. A weak king with a short, pretty unremarkable reign, how did he become the most famous pharaoh of all time? This is the ultimate irony of his story. This is his accidental legacy.
I mean, think about the great pharaohs, the ones we all know. We remember them for building gigantic temples, for winning huge wars, for expanding the empire. Tutankhamun? He did none of that. By all the normal historical standards, his name should have just faded away.
But history, had a different plan. And the supreme irony is that he became famous not for his life, but for his death. His small hidden tomb was somehow missed by grave robbers for over 3,000 years. And when Howard Carter finally opened it in 1922, the world just lost its mind over the treasures inside. He became this global icon, completely by accident.
So what should you take away from all this? His story, it really boils down to 3 things. A child king, born into this unbelievable ceremony, but with zero real power. A manipulated empire, where his divine name was just a tool to reshape an entire nation. And finally, a total shock to the modern world, when the discovery of his tomb made a forgotten boy immortal.
So, the next time you see that golden mask, you'll see something different, won't you? It's pretty surprising when you think about it. You won't just see a symbol of power anymore. You'll see the story of a fragile boy, a manipulated king, and the incredible randomness of fame. It just goes to show, the most famous stories are rarely the ones you think you know.